podcast by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
This week's podcast episode of Cried Out Loud is with guest Yessenia Latorre. It's in honor of October Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and she is featured in the New York Post, Newsweek, the U.S. Sun, MSN, and is a TikTok influencer with quite a following of 221,000 followers, and she is very open about what it's like to be a surrogate and her surrogacy journey. She is making dreams of parenthood become a reality. So we would like to welcome Yessenia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to talk with you on your podcast. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. When your rep reached out to us to be on our podcast for other survivors, just to hear and discuss the journey, it just meant so much, and we're just grateful for you. So with that said, let's dive in. If we want, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to start a little bit with Yessenia's history, her story and journey, before her babies and the surrogacy journey that she's on. So if you want to go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit.
Yes, so my childhood was a lot different than I would say the ordinary childhood. I was raised by a single father. It was just me, my dad, and my sister. So we had a really tight-knit family. And I feel like because growing up in that environment with just the three of us, it made me realize how important family was. I always cared so much about my little family, and once I grew up, I always had these dreams of becoming a mother one day. I think it was because of the absence of my own mother in my life. I think I had those feelings of wanting to be a mother so deeply. When I grew up and I was able to have a child for the first time, I had my first son when I turned 20 years old, and he was the light of my life. I was so happy to be a mother. And then soon afterwards, in the year 2018, I found myself pregnant again unexpectedly. I was very sad when I first found out I was pregnant initially, just because I was worried about taking any attention from the baby I already had. I was really nervous about being a bad mother and having too many kids too soon, and so many different things were running through my mind at the time. But at the end of the day, I was really happy and excited to become a mother of two. So eventually, we'll dive deeper into everything, but eventually I ended up having a miscarriage. It was one of the most hard things I ever dealt with in my life, but in a way, it became kind of like a full circle moment, because now I'm able to help others create their own families and talk about surrogacy and talk about infertility. So in a way, like experience my miscarriage, it really helped me change my life and help impact other people's lives as well.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your heart and sharing your story, letting us dive into a little bit of, what you have been through and why you do what you do, which is just such a beautiful thing. I want to back up a little bit though. So
Yes.
you have been with your middle school sweetheart, and that's who you, the father of your children and everything, which is such a beautiful thing, because at such a young age, who knows where you're going to end up, and here you are, and you guys have been together since.
Yes, and I am like a huge believer in like destiny. Like whoever you're supposed to be with is like it was meant to be. I'm a huge believer in that. And yeah, so I met my husband when I was in middle school. We dated for like 2 years, and we ended up getting back together, rekindling things in high school, and we've been back together almost 10 years now. And I feel like my middle school version of myself would be so happy to think that, like, wow, like you're still together, like that's so amazing. But I really feel like God puts people in your life for a purpose, and I'm a true believer in destiny is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. No. And well, I mean, I think it goes back to say volumes. So you guys have been together for a long time. So when you were 20 and had your first baby boy, of course you guys were ready. You knew you wanted to be a mother. You knew that you were, right for each other, and it was just like perfect timing, right? And
Right.
then it's so heartbreaking to hear that then you experienced your loss. And if you want to tell our listeners a little bit about that after your first baby boy and
Yes.
elaborate on that.
So, yes, I would love to talk more about it. So, it was right before my first son turned 1 years old. I'm not exact sure of the whole timeline, but I know it was right before his first birthday. I found out I was pregnant. I made the doctor's appointment. I was so nervous for this pregnancy. I don't know why. It just felt different. It wasn't the excitement off the bat, just because I felt like I was so nervous because I was like, what if I had another child and they had complications and then it was going to take away from the child I already had? There was so many things going through my mind. So I ended up going to my 7 week appointment, which was supposed to be like the heartbeat confirmation appointment, something that you're so excited for. Like, I had my husband there, we were there to see the baby, we were so excited. And then when the doctor was looking at the ultrasound machine, things just didn't add up off the bat. They told me I was measuring around 4 or 5 weeks, and this was just really odd to us just because my cycles have always been consistent. I'm really on point with knowing how far along I am in pregnancy. I just know my body really well. And so for the doctors to tell me I'm measuring only 4 to 5 weeks, you probably calculated your due date wrong. It just threw me off immediately. I was just like, something is not right. I didn't like that feeling. But the doctor just told me, okay, we're going to make you a follow up doctor's appointment and then we'll see if anything has changed. I went to that doctor's appointment, nothing changed. But I think the thing that hurt the most is like I still had hope. I still had hope. I still wanted everything to be okay. I was following my doctor's guidance because they're supposed to be the professionals in this field. But I
Absolutely.
ended up going into a miscarriage. I ended up bleeding. I'm sorry, like trigger warning for others that might be listening. I ended up starting to bleed, and I already knew what was happening. But I really wish that I kind of had like precaution, like that I was told that this is a possibility because it kind of just came out of the blue that I just started miscarrying. And I felt so sad. I felt so depressed. Even when I was going back to the doctors, like actively bleeding, they still didn't tell me, like, you were going to have a miscarriage. They didn't tell me anything like that. And it was really hard because I felt so unheard from my doctors, from my friends, from everybody around me. I felt like nobody truly understood the feelings and the emotions that I was going through in that time. And I really wish, looking back, that I had support because I didn't realize how many women suffer with miscarriages, how many women suffer with infertility until I experienced it going through it myself.
Yeah.
So I ended up having the loss at 10 weeks, even though the baby passed at only 4 or 5 weeks. So it's like my body kind of didn't register what was going on. I'm really grateful that I didn't have to have any like follow up procedures or anything, but I really wish I had support looking back on that time in my life because I was extremely depressed. I lost probably easily 30 pounds. I was crying all the time. It's something really unexplainable.
Well, it really is. And you touched on it, Jasenia, that it's something that you never want to be a part of this club, right? Or this community with loss and
Right.
having to experience any kind of baby loss at any stage. And it's so heartbreaking. I mean, it shatters the parents' world because parents they don't outlive their children. And so when that happens, it just completely disrupts your whole entire future, your dreams, your hopes, everything. Um, So,
Right.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that and just, being vulnerable for our listeners. And then how did, that experience, right? So, of course, it caused so many like emotionally, physically, mentally draining things that just shattered you. But how did that then
Right.
transition into? I know you had another son, your rainbow baby boy, and then surrogacy. So how did that all kind of play a
Yes.
role?
So after my miscarriage, I got pregnant around 3 months afterwards. And
Okay.
I felt so grateful. I felt so lucky that I was able to have another child after experiencing this traumatic event because the only thing in my head that was saying was just like, what if it happens again? What if it happens again? I was so nervous. I was so anxious. But I got pregnant with my son only 3 months after. It was a perfect pregnancy. Everything went so amazing. I ended up having him at 37 weeks. He was a huge baby, 9 pounds, 3 ounces, and I was just in love. I was like, my heart was so full. And being able to become a mother for the second time, especially after going through loss, it was like an undescribable feeling. And then having my baby in my arms, being able to breastfeed, I just felt so lucky. And I just like cherished those moments. I cherished holding my child. I cherished having two beautiful boys because I see so many people out there that are not able to have any children. And they are some of the most beautiful individuals I've ever talked to in this world. Some of the most beautiful people. And since when I had both of my children, I just, in going through that experience, it just made me think about all the people that never get to experience this. And I know what I went through was only like a touch of the iceberg. I never had to go through the fertility treatments, I never had to have reoccurrent miscarriages, all these other things. And that really opened my eyes to I really would love to do this for somebody else if I'm able to, because at the time I didn't know if I was able to or not. But after I was done breastfeeding and I was officially able to start the process, I signed up immediately and I just love pregnancy. I love being pregnant. It's like life is growing inside of you and I really wanted to kind of, how do you say it, pull it forward or
Oh,
just help
yeah.
another family, just kind of
Oh,
like
yeah. Like,
extend the blessings.
absolutely. Oh, yeah. Pay it forward. Absolutely. Oh, that's so beautiful,
Yes,
Yessenia. Yeah.
yes, pay it forward.
Absolutely. And I think something too, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit. When I got pregnant with our rainbow baby after, we went through our loss, I felt it was really hard being pregnant after loss. And like the like
Yeah.
worry and the anxiety and things like that. Like, how was it for you? And then now being a surrogate and, holding others' babies. Yeah.
Yes. So when I was pregnant with my son, I was extremely nervous and scared, anxious, you name it. I went to the doctor and I remember like crying to my doctor saying like I don't want to have another miscarriage. I don't want to feel that pain again. Like basically like
Yes.
please help me.
Yes,
I
do
remember
something.
crying to my doctor. Yeah, I'm just like please just do something. Help me because at the time I was just like maybe they can give me something. I don't know what they
Right.
can do.
Right.
No idea. So um Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought for a second. So,
Oh, no,
yeah, I
that's okay.
remember telling my doctor I was so nervous but everything was perfect. I can't explain it.
Oh,
Like, even my labor and delivery, I describe as perfect because I got to have my baby naturally. I got to breastfeed immediately. It was an amazing experience. And then when I was able to be pregnant with my surrogate baby, I feel like instead of being anxious for myself, I was more anxious for the family just because I feel like there's a lot of weight on my shoulders. I want for them to
right,
have their
right.
dream baby, their miracle baby. And I felt so anxious all the time. So I feel like I was extra cautious with everything, making sure I feel and move, taking my vitamins like on time, like doing all these extra things
Oh,
just to make sure that the baby's fine because now as a surrogate, you're not doing it for yourself, but you're doing this for another person's life. So I
right.
feel like I did have less anxiety for the surrogacy pregnancy because I just had my son, but I just really wanted to make the family happy.
Oh, that is so beautiful and selfless. I mean, for you to, I think that's something that others don't think about, right? When they think of a surrogate, like the things that you have to put yourself through, like not just like all of the, overwhelming feelings and everything and wanting to make sure that everything happens right for the, parents to get their dream and things like that. But then also like making sure what you're putting into your body is completely, out like, just doing it over the top almost, right? Because it's for somebody
Yes.
else. Right. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So eating healthier, cooking at home all the time, not as much fast food as I probably
Yeah.
would regularly eat.
Right.
Just like going above and beyond, just because the goal is to see that baby in his parents' arms. And like, that's all we want. We just want them to have a healthy baby no matter what it takes.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That's just so, like I said, selfless. Like, how many
Thank
times now
you.
have you been a surrogate?
Yes, so I've only been a surrogate one time now. I am
Okay.
almost 8 months postpartum, but I also completed an egg donation for another family.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but I feel like since sharing my story online, even though I'm not currently a surrogate because there's so much responsibility that goes into it, even though I'm not currently doing it, I feel like by sharing my story, it impacts other people because they don't realize that this is an option for them. I help girls become surrogates if they would like as well. So I feel like even though I'm not carrying the babies, I feel like I'm having a bigger impact in helping bring babies into the world.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, this is something that we talk about in our daily support groups is, you need to like educate to advocate, right? And so with you
Right.
educating others on surrogacy, the power of it, the options of it, and the beauty of it, right? All those different things can help others to make an educated decision then, especially because I feel like sometimes, we hear all the noise from our society, from others and their judgments and things like that. So hearing it firsthand from someone like you who has gone through it, you educate people on it, you find others who might want to be surrogates, but also, having an open TikTok channel and Instagram and all of that about it, it really does put those myths to side and actually does, bring out to light what needs to be brought out.
Yes, exactly. Because I feel like in the media, they always portray surrogacy to be this certain type of way. Oh, the surrogate wants to steal the baby. Oh, she's doing it for money. She's doing it for this. She's doing it for this. But I feel like by sharing my story, people can dive deeper into it and think more deep about everything because these women are not doing it for money. They don't want to
Right,
steal the baby.
right,
We're genuinely surrogates are like angels on earth, I
yeah.
swear. And I feel like sharing my story, getting people to know the real me and to see like I'm a real human. And so they can connect with me in different ways. Just to say like, yes, I had a miscarriage, but this is how I changed somebody else's life. Yes, I've been through traumatic things, but that doesn't make me have to be a bad person just because I have so many stories to tell. And I think it's important to tell those stories to help others and help people feel like they're not alone, to help answer
Right.
questions. There's so many different things that I feel like sharing my story has done, not only for me, but for others.
Absolutely. And, this kind of segues into our next, talks about like the myths and things like that. But for all of our listeners out there that are contemplating surrogacy and to talk through like some of these myths with going down this route to parenthood, you know, like you and I've discussed before, this is sometimes, or most of the time, is the last resort for people. And it's after having
Right.
reoccurring losses and years of being on a fertility journey. And that comes with a whole lot of losses too. And so, can you shine some light on how impactful this route can be for those survivors?
Yes. So many people use surrogacy for so many different reasons, like we talked about in the past, like recurrent pregnancy loss, if they have HIV, if they have autoimmune diseases. There's so many reasons that people can use a surrogate. And I would say majority of the time it is medical reasons. They're not doing this because they feel like paying somebody. That's not the reason at all.
Right.
So it's definitely important to remember. Sorry, losing my track of thought.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah. So how impactful this route can be on those survivors.
Yes. So many people, they don't realize that this is an option. And once they find out that they can do this, they can have a biological child. They don't have to adopt because I always say adoption is a good option, but it is for the right family. And surrogacy is a great option for different families because many people, it is important for them to have a biological child. And like the family that I carried for, these families are so grateful. They're so appreciative. They're such beautiful people. Like my intended parents, they told me they feel like they're in debt to me for life, forever,
Oh,
just because of this miracle baby that I have brought to them. But it feels so special just because I felt like I was meant to do this. I was a part of his story for some reason. And even though he's not my child, I will forever love him. I will forever love the family. I would forever love the impact, the story. Like, I was a part of his story and their story to parenthood. And I just think that is so special. And every time I'm reminded and I get the pictures and I get the videos of their baby boy growing up, it just makes me feel amazing. It's kind of,
oh,
it's like priceless. It's a priceless feeling.
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's just so beautiful. Yeah, and so let's talk through some of those myths that are common in our
Yes,
society that people put around surrogacy, which can be very upsetting and disturbing because it's not true, like you said before. And by having an open discussion around this, I hope it starts to take the power away from these myths, and then we can really focus on the truths. And then, for those that are contemplating this or thinking about it and seeing if it is right for them. So,
right.
the surrogate is biologically related to the baby, is the first one.
Right. So I understand where this myth comes from because a long time ago, traditional surrogacy was like the first surrogacy out there, where a traditional surrogate is a surrogate that she would use her own egg and they would do like IUI or other protocols to get pregnant. But majority of the time now, there is gestational surrogates or gestational carriers, and that's what I am. So that means I'm carrying a baby that's 100% not related to me. That means the intended parents, they getting their egg and their sperm, creating their embryo, and I'm just holding the embryo
Wow.
because so traditional surrogates they use their own egg, gestational surrogates do not. But I would say 100% majority of these surrogates are gestational carriers and we are not related to the baby. So I could carry a baby that's 100% Chinese, 100% black, 100% white. It doesn't matter. I'm just the carrier. I'm just kind of like the oven, and that is their bun is like what a lot of surrogates like to say.
Oh, that's so sweet the way that you guys say it.
Yeah.
Oh. Also, yeah, so another one is that it's incredibly expensive and is only used by celebrities.
Yes. So I would say there are celebrities that use surrogates, of course, like Kim Kardashian and I believe it was Joe Jonas. There's so many that use surrogates, but majority of these families, they're regular middle class families that save up so much money to be able to afford this process. And I think that's really important to remember because some people I get a lot of comments online like, I would not do that even for $100,000. I wouldn't do it for $1 million, but that's not the point. The point is to help a family. Us surrogates, we see the money as being a bonus. It's so much of our time, it's so much of our body. We have to go through, I went through 4 months of IVF medications. I went through so many ultrasounds, so many injections, so many different things that I went through. And I feel like if you're genuinely doing it for the money, it's never going to be worth it. So I think it's important to stay reasonable when thinking about like compensation and things like that, and to remember that these families are normal families. They're getting second jobs, they're putting mortgages on their houses, they're selling possessions, they're saving up so much money for this. And I think it's important to remember that they're not rich. They're just people that just want a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you shed a light on that one for sure.
Thank you.
Also, is it not safe to use a surrogate you do not know personally?
Oh, it is 100% safe to use a surrogate that you don't know personally. I think because there's so many things that a surrogate goes through to even be qualified for surrogacy. There's so many medical screenings, home evaluation, psychological screenings. There is so many things that we go through to even be qualified for this process. I think it is a plus if you can know your surrogate personally, like if it's a friend, a sister, a family member. I think that's amazing if you can find somebody in your family to do it for you. But like these women, they're amazing. They're so amazing and they just want to be there to help. And I think it's definitely safe to use a surrogate that you don't know personally.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. So the next question we have is the surrogate mother can try to take custody of your child.
Yes, so that is 100% not true.
Good. I'm glad. I'm
Not
glad you're saying this.
true.
Yes, tell us. Yes.
Yes. So, prior to the embryo transfer, prior to us starting the medications, we have really in-depth contracts. My contract was easily 30 pages. I've seen other contracts 50 pages. They are so strict in these contracts. And as a surrogate, we have our own legal counsel, and the intended parents have their own legal counsel. So that is really important as well, just so everybody remains legally protected. And prior to the birth of the surrogacy baby, there is something called a PBO, or a pre birth order, just to say, this is the parent's baby. This is not the surrogate's baby. There are some states that are iffy, but majority surrogacy agencies do not work with these states, such as Nebraska, Louisiana, and Michigan. So surrogacy agencies, we don't work with those states due to the legality problems in those states when it comes to parentage.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. So if a parent did live in Michigan, let's say, and wanted to use a surrogate, they would probably go out of state then to get a surrogate. They wouldn't use one in Michigan. They would go to an agency somewhere else, right? Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, because like at my agency, we don't take surrogates for certain from certain areas just due to the laws because we don't want to have any legal complications or
Absolutely.
anything like that. And I know the surrogacy industry is growing, but I think like 15 years ago, there was a surrogate that like ran off or something because
Oh, gosh.
she didn't want to terminate, but the baby had severe problems. And it's just a
Oh,
horrible story, just a horrible story.
right. Right. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Oh, this is okay. So this is probably the one that I guess I would have as the mother,
Yes.
with a surrogate, trouble bonding with their baby once born because they don't know their voice, or their bond because they didn't carry them.
So I so lots of people have opinions on this topic. I
Okay.
think there's something called I forgot what the study is called. Some people say that babies born from a surrogate, they can't connect, and they're traumatized because they were born from a surrogate. And I don't believe that at all. I love seeing the intended parents that share pictures of their babies so happy, smiling, and they're like, "Oh, look, they're so traumatized, right?" But these babies, I see them love on their parents so much, and they have so much love all around them. I just don't feel like that's true at all. There are so many
Right.
ways that surrogates love to connect with their intended parents as well, like playing their parents' voices in the
Right.
belly or playing certain music and different things like that. And there are many surrogates that go above and beyond too, so the parents can have that connection with their baby and listen to the voice recordings. And I think there are things you can do to definitely help that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, with our technology nowadays, with those voice recordings and all of that, of course. Like if you play that a couple times a
Right,
day, or whatever, and just have it on because you don't hear it, it's through headphones and it just goes to the baby. That's a perfect way to bond. And that's so true. Ways that we don't think about. So, yeah, that's a
right.
beautiful thing. Um, well, I already know that this one isn't true, but of course, let's ask it anyways. Women opt for surrogacy to save their figure and avoid being pregnant.
Yes, so that is not true. Majority agencies and fertility clinics, they actually like require like a medical reason for them to have a surrogate. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe because surrogates are really needed out there. Um, because I can't imagine, I don't think I would even agree to that,
Right.
doing it just because somebody doesn't want to be pregnant. Like, that's not reasonable to me. But I would say in rare circumstances, it could be okay. Just because, like, for example, in certain countries, a woman can't work if she's pregnant. And if she's like the
Right.
sole provider for a family, I feel like it could be justified in certain circumstances.
Yeah. That actually makes sense. And yeah, you don't think about those kind of things because of us living in
Right,
America and what that's like. Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Huh. Well, thank you so much for shedding light on all of these different myths and then honestly just putting the reality behind them all. Is there anything else that you would like to tell our listeners about surrogacy?
I think if you're considering surrogacy, whether it's being an intended parent or becoming a surrogate or even like an egg donor, I think it's really important to do research. It's a really big commitment and a lot goes into it that many people might not think of, because I sure learn something new every single day. So I would say it's important to do your research, number one. And number two is having empathy, caring for these families, being there for them. Because, like I said, this is not the parents' choice. They don't want to have a surrogate, but sometimes life just leads them down this road. But I think it's important to remain empathetic and caring for these families, because sometimes these families can be hurting, and it's
Right.
important to understand that. So like doing your research, being empathetic is really important. And if you are thinking about becoming a surrogate, they can always reach out to me. I would love to talk to them individually and hear their stories, because I always try to do my part and help out as many people as I can.
Oh, Jasenia, just thank you so much for showing your true beauty, your selflessness, and just all that you are doing for, those people and parents out there that cannot have their own children regardless of their circumstances. And just, thank you so
Right.
much from the bottom of my heart. And we can't thank you enough for just opening up and being honest about the surrogacy journey and putting your story out there to help survivors and gaining a bigger picture of it. So just thank
Right.
you so much.
No, you're welcome. I'm so happy to be here. I really just want to, I wish everybody could hear my story, and I hope, as long as it's helping some people, I'm going to try my hardest to share it more, because I think it's important to realize that you can, even if you went through like hard experiences in your life, like miscarriage or anything, because I've been through so many things, you can flip it around and you can still be a good person. And just because you went through previous pain in the past doesn't mean you have to be a bad person, because I feel like a lot of people that have been through so many traumatic things, they end up like having that affect their entire life. And there's always a bigger picture. I always like to remain optimistic and be kind. Just be kind to others, I think is really important to remember.
And you're so spot on. We've done previous segments for this month for October Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness, and it's really around, those judgmental comments, and not that people mean to make them, but, when they hear about someone
Right,
having a loss and they go up and they say, oh, sorry for your loss, but, and then they insert something else to kind of give it a silver lining or put some hope behind it, but it's very insensitive and it affects and hurts,
yeah,
the survivor. So instead, it's like just be that listening, non judgmental ear, be kind because you don't know the journey that someone's walking or what they've been through. And so that's so beautiful that
right.
you, yeah, just said that, Jasenia. That was, oh, so heartfelt and touching. Thank you.
Mm. Well, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me because, I get those hurtful comments pretty much every single day of my life. And even when I was going through my miscarriage and going through so many
Yes,
different things, I get these negative comments, but you gotta try to fight through it, try to be optimistic, have an open mind, because you never know what somebody else is going through. You never know the path that they came from.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, so we, with our nonprofit Chasing the Rainbows, as the extension of this podcast, we do have daily support groups that meet virtually for anyone across the U.S. So please just reach out. They're free, and they're for all of us survivors to come together to be able to face the world together because we all need that sometimes, especially when we are facing others and the negativity and the ugliness in the world. So it's just good that, we can all come together like that. So thank you so much again, Jasenia, for being here. And I just like to thank everybody for tuning in. And please follow or subscribe to our podcast to help us reach more survivors. And if any survivors are listening and in need of that daily support, like we said, want to volunteer or donate, please reach out to us on our contact form through our website, chasingtherainbows.org. And we are always with you, fertility loss, pregnancy loss, and baby loss survivors. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks again, Jasenia, for everything.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me.
Great. Well, everyone take care, and until next time, thanks so much.